Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in this segment of the morning show, Mr. Fred Lamkey, is the superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools, and we'll get Mr. Lamkey up here in just a moment. Mr. Lamkey, are you with us here this morning?
I am, Seth. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. Thanks for making time for us. Always good to have you on the program. How are Mount Pulaski schools this week? What do you have going on? What's your kids' schedule for the Thanksgiving week?
Oh, we've got a short schedule. We go to school Monday, we get out a little early on Tuesday, and we get Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off.
I had a soup on last week. They're giving the kids Wednesday off, I think, and I just got a notice from Clinton that Tuesday's a full day for us. You soups are just too nice to the kids these days. I was reminiscing. Actually, you might know this gal, Breanne Titus. She sends her kids to Mount Pulaski schools. We were talking off the air one day last week, or a couple weeks ago, I guess, about how we never had the day before Thanksgiving off, Mr. Lamkey, because Lincoln's got that big basketball tournament. I can remember going to school on Wednesday. I'd come home for a little bit, get back to the high school for the basketball game on Wednesday. I mean, we took it right up to Thanksgiving. You guys are just too nice to these kids anymore.
Well, you know what we found out? I remember as a teacher what the Wednesday before Thanksgiving was like, and there wasn't a lot of instruction going on because everybody was already checked out. So it's probably just best that we try and pick another day to teach kids and get their turkey day started a little early.
Yeah, but that just means they're going to check out on Monday instead of Tuesday now, or they're going to check out on maybe midday on Monday instead of early on Tuesday. You know what I mean?
We got better odds on other days, though. I think that's the whole point.
No question. No, but as I told one of the soups last week, really the kids today, there's just so much demanded of them. Even just from a curriculum standpoint, just from a just from the classroom setting standpoint, there is so much more demanded of them. I feel like than there was when I was in school. So I say that kind of tongue in cheek because it's there is just so much that they have to do in the classroom. That extra day, I'm not bothered by that in the least. Just being a little sarcastic there, but in all seriousness. Go ahead, Mr. Lamkey. I'm sorry.
I said absolutely, and I said anybody. All you have to do to understand the difference is have kids and try and help them with their homework. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're doing this in sixth grade, and it gets above the parents' heads very quickly anymore because how much more rigorous curriculum is. So yeah, you're correct, Seth.
I got a second and a fourth grader, and it's nothing that's above my head yet, but it's just like you're learning. Like it was I remember the homework last year. I'm like, you're learning this in third grade. Like I feel like this was at least maybe fifth grade stuff we were learning back in the day. But it's crazy. It really is. But
Seth, it's coming. Sixth grade, you'll be able to handle it probably in the sixth grade, but you start getting into junior high. Math will be the first one to bite you.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Don't. Yeah. I've heard enough about what is this curriculum called? The what is it? The math stuff. What do they call that? I'm trying to think. It's evading me at the moment.
You mean the curriculum that's being handed down like by the state standards?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Common Core math.
Common Core math. Oh my gosh, Mr. Lamkey, I've seen enough Common Core complaints on social media to last me a lifetime. I really don't want my kids to get there, but like you said, it's coming. No question about it. No question about it. Let's talk, Mr. Lamkey. By the way, I know was it this past weekend or the weekend prior? Your Board of Education was in I think Chicago for the annual ISB meeting, and I know you talked about this just a little bit last time we talked, but your board made a presentation at this annual meeting. How about that?
Yeah, I tell you what, it was really well attended this year. The crowds and the rooms and the general sessions. You could lucky if you got a seat. It's a joint annual conference. It's put on by the Illinois Association of School Boards, the Illinois Association of Superintendents, and the Illinois Association of Business Officials. And basically, it's superintendents and board members, and there's a few sprinkled in administrators too from across the entire state that attend this. And honestly, it's probably the best professional development that I experienced as an administrator. It's a really, really good weekend. And probably one of the best things is the fact that you just sit and have conversations and listen to what people are doing in different places. Because believe it or not, what we're doing in DeWitt County and Logan County is a little bit different what they're doing in the far southern part of the state and what they're doing up north. And even if you don't need to do what they're doing, to hear about it is good for your understanding.
So how do you make it relevant to, how different districts are from Cairo to Chicago? How about that?
Well, I'll use it. We did present at this conference, and I'll use our example. And we were in a session where we had over 350 individuals in our session, and they probably represented 125 or 150 different school districts. And in that session, here's Mount Pulaski, grand enrollment of 530 kids. And I announced that real early, and you could almost hear the air go out of the room when they heard how small we were. And then I just kind of pulled the room, and I'd say most of the school districts were somewhere in that 1,000 to 2,000 range. There was probably maybe about 20% that were over, probably about 20% over 2,000, about 20% under 1,000. So that range in the middle. But when we presented, and what we presented on, it was called strategic planning, which I won't go into with the listeners. We've been through it a million times. It's pretty dry. But the big twist I put on it this time, or my board panel and I put on it, was talked about shared leadership with it. And what I really had to set the tone for that room was, this is conceptual. This isn't a blueprint. You follow this and it works. This is a concept of strategies and what you can do, but you have to apply it to your district. Because what we do in Mount Pulaski with 520 kids, and what they do with District 186 in Springfield with 12,000 kids, that's two different things. So I think that's the big part about it, is just looking at things like from and I've heard just several times this weekend, as a board and the superintendent looking at it from a 30,000 foot look at it. So you're seeing everything at once, and then figuring out, how do I adapt that to make it work for my district.
So, Mr. Lamkey, just kind of give us an outline of some of the maybe talking points, bullet points of your presentation. What was it all about?
Well, the big thing was empowering educators and empowering your community. In strategic planning, that you involve your community in trying to find out what's important. What do you want your school to do, and what do you want us to accomplish? And then you're also using your the stakeholders inside your school, your students, your paraprofessionals, your non-certified staff, your teachers, your administrators, to everybody have an opinion and identify what is important. And when you start doing that, you start developing, for example, we have building leadership teams, which are made up of 7 teachers and administrators from each building. We put together a district leadership team, which is teachers and representatives from buildings, plus parents, plus community members, plus board members. And when you start putting more and more people, and these people aren't making decisions, it's not like it's a democracy, but they're making recommendations about what we should be doing. Mm-hmm. They're making our school improvement plans and our district improvement plans, so we know what our focus should be as a school. And from that, you start having other leaders emerge. And that's why I really focused on this, on talking about shared leadership. And if I said it once, I probably said it a dozen times, is that the number one thing, when I walk into a room, whether there's 2 or 3 people or there's 350 people, I never assume I'm the smartest person in that room. There may be some things that I'm skilled at and I am aware of, but there's always people that know more than you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's our responsibility as school leaders is to get that out and make it a resource for us, and how we improve and how we do things better. And that's been a big thing of what we've been doing at Mount Pulaski the last 4.5 years. And it's worked out so well that our teachers are empowered, our board's been empowered, and we're working collaboratively and together to make these decisions. And I really think it's making us a better school district. I can't remember if it was out last time, but we're very proud that our grade school was given a designation of exemplary by the Illinois State Board of Education. That means we're in the top 10% of the grade schools in the state, and we were one of 4 grade school districts in a 5-county area representing over 100 schools to get that designation. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily believe that strategic planning was the sole reason we got there, but I really believe it was the structure of that allowed our teachers and our administration and our students to do the work to get that designation. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll dive into that school report card after the break a little bit. Now, I know that we talked a little bit about this when you were previewing this presentation to ISB last time we talked in, I guess that would have been October. How do you prevent there from becoming too much leadership in a model like this, Mr. Lamkey? Because, that can always become kind of problematic. How do you keep that from happening?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that maybe scares some people off. If you're a traditionalist and you kind of work from that top-down structure, it scares you. You think you're giving other people too much control of something, but it always comes down to its leadership's decisions. We have 7 people on the board of education that do the hiring, that set the policy, and have the oversight of our district. You still have a superintendent who's working with the administrators to make decisions in buildings. And when it comes down to tough decisions, we still make those decisions. But what's happening is those building leadership teams are help inform our administration on how to better make these decisions. They're bringing things to the table that maybe we wouldn't have known or considered prior. So I guess, the old analogy, the car is going down the road. We do have a pilot, or we do have a driver of this car, and they're keeping it out of the ditches and they're keeping this going down the road. You can't have a true democracy and have a good leading organization inside something like this.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to have that strong leadership to help guide where you're going.
Sure. Well, let's dive into that leadership piece there, Mr. Lamkey, because a couple of things to have you address. One is, how do you pass this off to that individual that's going to come in after you as you're retiring at the end of the school year? And then how about that discussion on the person that will follow your footsteps there in Mount Pulaski? Those two things, address those with us.
Yeah, I think it makes the job easier for the person coming in. And what we don't want to do is dictate to them what type of leader they need to be. Everybody coming in, the person coming in that's going to sit in the seat after me is going to be a different type of leader than I am. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the way I do things isn't the right or wrong way. It's just how I do things. But what it does do, it provides the structure out there to make improvements. And so that leader can come in, work through the administrators, work through the leadership teams to get their philosophies, their ideas, and the things that they find important, and work through them to get those things done. So the structure is going to naturally be there. When I came to Mount Pulaski, and it was one of the things the board was asking of me, they're like, we need more structure. We do things really well, but we do things kind of well randomly. It's just we don't know how or why the positive outcomes happen necessarily. And so this just gives you the chance of repeating your successes and avoiding missteps. And so that's what's going to be really good for the person coming in, that the structure is there. They don't have to recreate it. They just got to hit the ground running, build those relationships, which is more important than anything, with administration, staff, community, the Board of Education. And then once they get their feet wet, they can start, again, continuing our successes and finding our routes to the new successes.
Well, and how about your successor there, Mr. Lamkey? What do we know about that process?
Well, I can't name who it is yet. That's going to be decided at tonight's board meeting, but we do have a candidate that's going to be up for recommendation. In the process, we had, I believe, 14 or 15 candidates come through. We interviewed 6 of those, narrowed it down to 3. And then we have a final selection. And in that process, we had 3 interview groups in the final stages. One was the Board of Education. One was a community group with administrators in it. And then another group was our teachers. And everybody had a chance to ask questions of them and get to know the 3 top candidates we had. And then we came to one person that we think is going to do a great job leading our district. And that will be announced tonight.
So look forward to that.
Consider it.
Yeah, so look forward to who that will be come the end of the night tonight. Very good. Well, Mr. Lamkey, anything else on the conversation up to this point that I haven't touched on you want to make sure we know about?
No, it's just I guess the final thing was it was a presentation done by Board President Eric Cowan, our Vice President Mrs. Mott, and myself, and it was so well received by the audience. We as we walked around the conference afterwards, people were approaching us, asking us questions. And I did the math on the people that were in there. We touched somewhere around 15 to 20% of the school districts in the state in that room. And to me, that's good for Mount Pulaski to let people know there's good things happening in Logan, DeWitt, Macon County. And it's not just all happening above I-80.
Very good, Mr. Lamkey. Let's take a break here, sir. Come back with some more. Mr. Fred Lamkey, Superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools, our guest on the phone. More to come with him on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Monday. I'm Jim Taylor on the RFD Radio Network. Corn starting the day slightly higher, beans double-digit higher, and wheat slightly lower. December corn 468.5 up 1.5. March corn up a penny, 486.25. May corn 497 up a penny. January beans starting this Monday 1355.25 up 15. March beans up 14.25, 1370.75. May beans 1382.25 up 13.25. December wheat underway on this Monday, 549.5 down 1.25. March wheat down 1/4, 575.5. May wheat 591 down a penny. December bean meal 451.50. That's down 180. December bean oil 52.67 up 66 cents. Opening numbers at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Monday morning. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network.
Looking for Chevrolet inventory? This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick here in Clinton. We have the all-new Chevrolet Trax, Blazer, and Trailblazers coming. Plus, several Chevrolet Equinoxes and Traverses are here. This month, take advantage of extra $1,000 trade-in assistance on your trade. There's always a need for quality trades here at Baum's. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
Need a winter coat? Here at Love It Once More Thrift Store in Clinton, we have a great selection of adult and children's coats, and right now they're on sale for 20% off. This is Connie inviting you to come check out our Christmas items too. See us on Facebook, Instagram, and DeWittDailyNews.com.
This is Ryan Utterback with Utterback Real Estate. Selling your house on your own can be overwhelming.
Pricing, phone calls, showings, liability. Did I mention the paperwork and baking all those cookies for open houses?
And that's why you're the other Ryan.
For stress-free selling, click the Utterback Real Estate icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Mr. Fred Lamkey, superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools, on the phone with us this morning. And Mr. Lamkey, you touched on it just briefly in that first segment. The school report card data has come out, and you mentioned Mount Pulaski Schools did quite well. So let's break down report card data. What do you know? What can you tell us?
I tell you, we weren't expecting to get the exemplary designation, but I would tell you we weren't surprised when it happened. We've been working the last 4 years at the grade school to really use the data that we had, and we've been doing testing data, our own data, not from the state. Yeah, but we never used the data, and now we're looking at it and we're finding the areas we need to improve upon. We had a decades-old curriculum in math and English language arts that we've changed in the last 3 years, and we're making instructional improvements, and we're doing different strategies. And so we really feel like we're doing things in a better way for kids to help them learn. And we were just, like I said, we weren't surprised, but we weren't expecting to get that status, because it's a tough one to reach. You can be a very, very good school district and not get that exemplary mark.
Why is it tough to reach?
Well, there's other things like, you could be doing very well, but you have different groups of kids in schools, whether it be low income, whether it be special needs students, whether it be different racial groups and things like that, that if those groups aren't meeting, then you can't meet as a district either. So it's the boxes you have to check in this report card are tough to do. And then, like for the high school, for example, it's primarily done off SAT scores. And, quite frankly, we have high classes that come through and low classes that come through. So they're kind of playing the hand that they're dealt a little more. But what makes it really difficult for the high school is determining graduation rate. And a topic amongst administrators, and we're hoping it's going to be a topic with ISB, is that there's some strange calculations that hurt a small district. So, if we have a graduating class of 50 kids and you have a couple kids that don't graduate, your percentage drops pretty quickly. But it's not just done off of the number of kids in your senior class. It's the kids that entered your school as a freshman, and do they graduate by the time they're a senior? So if you have a lot of mobility, which we've experienced the last few years, we seem to be trading kids with Lincoln and even Springfield right now. it creates a tougher dynamic for us to have a high graduation rate because of that. There's kids that come into our district that we only have for, a year or two, or they come in for a couple of years and then they're gone. And those things make it difficult sometimes, but we're working on that. That's other things that we've identified is that how do we support those type of students if we're going to be receiving them? How do we support them more? How do we get them where they need to be? So even though, we weren't exemplary at the high school this year, I think it's given us some things to work on so we can better serve kids.
What do you look for particularly in the school report card data? Is there anything that is pertinent to Mount Pulaski that you really want to dive into and make sure you're either doing well, the data, supports the things you're doing, the initiatives you have? What in the report card data are you looking at closely?
Well, the report card data, really, it's just boxes you need to check. For example, you have the 5 Essentials survey, or your district may make up their own survey, but you have to have a certain percentage of families and teachers and everybody involved in that. I'm good friends with one superintendent in another district, and they don't really value the 5 Essentials. Their school would have been exemplary if they had a high enough percentage of everybody taking it, but instead they weren't. So I think part of what you have to do is just make sure you're doing the steps that they're asking you to do. And you get data back from that we do use in our school improvement planning. I think it helps us there. But when we're talking about, student academic improvement, we spend a lot more time on the MAP data, and it's MAP testing that we do 3 times a year with our students. And that tells us what our students' growth is during the year and from year to year. The state testing doesn't specifically tell you what you're not doing well. They haven't broken it down far enough yet. But MAP testing, we can come all the way down to specific areas and specific subjects that you show weaknesses in, and then we can get that into our instruction to help improve things. So we spend more time working with our own testing data than we do with the state data.
Talk to me about chronic absenteeism, Mr. Lamkey. That's a buzzword I've heard a lot from your peers. How much of that is relevant in Mount Pulaski right now?
Yeah, that's another factor that you have to consider for your designation. And we're with our higher mobility that we've experienced the last few years, we're seeing more chronic truancy. And that's a tough one to attack, especially when you get to the high school age, because you hit a point in time, and I think it's true for any parent, that we are more in our students' life, and as they get older, we start giving up some of that responsibility. Some parents give up more of that responsibility as their kids hit their middle teens in high school, and having the support from the parents to get their kids to school sometimes is difficult. And sometimes it's the fact that the parents are working a couple jobs, they're not even home to make sure the kid gets to school. And so we work really closely with our SRO and our police chief here in Mount Pulaski. We drive out and we get the kids that aren't here. We try to get them. And Heather Fricky does a super job with attendance and encouraging it. And then also trying to identify, why aren't you coming to school? What is it? And it's a variety of things. Sometimes it's caring for younger siblings. Sometimes it's just anxiety, social anxiety, and sometimes it's just the kid doesn't want to be here.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Lamkey, I hate to do this to you. Got to let you go for the morning, sir. Appreciate your time as always. Fred Lamkey, Superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools.
The Big 1520 WHOW Clinton 92.